Welcome to the Amplify Speakers podcast, where we share stories of some of the most inspirational and talented people in the world and the lessons they've learned while building their teams, meaningful careers, and lasting impact. I'm your host, Chris Sun, and today's guest helps leaders make the right calls when the pressure is on. David Posner is the founder of 3 Point Care Consulting and has spent more than 2 decades helping executives, sales leaders, and coaches break through hesitation and lead with confidence. He specializes in decisiveness, accountability, communication, and trust. But what sets David apart is his background as a professional basketball referee, officiating at both the college and professional levels where every decision is fast, public, and high stakes. Those are real-time leadership lessons, and they shape how he helps leaders perform in the boardroom and beyond. So, David, I am extremely excited to have you here today.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. I'm trying to get started. Can't wait to share the story and can't wait to have some fun today.
Absolutely. So I guess for everyone listening, tell us a little about your experience. What is your journey that got you here today?
Yeah, so, as we were talking a little bit before off camera, I used to be a ball boy for the Washington Bullets and Wizards back in the day. So I've always been surrounded by basketball and I loved and have a passion for it. Unfortunately, I'm short and white and, really didn't have the basketball skills to make it much beyond high school. But I had that passion and love for the game. And from there, while working with the NBA guys, I worked in the NBA locker room with the NBA referees. And a couple of those guys started talking to me about officiating basketball. And, just like everybody else, I hated referees and couldn't stand them and got, thrown out. But as I got onto court, I was able to kind of give back and talk. And so I started in the mini mites and worked my way up from freshman ball to JV to varsity. And as we talked about college, semi-pro, I even did the Olympics preseason trials for the USA team going out to London and Brazil. So I've had some amazing opportunities, and I've also been in healthcare. For the last 20 years, I've been in everything from pharmaceuticals, medical device, into senior care. And, one day I was just kind of thinking, is there a way I can kind of really mix and match these together? And I was at a game and officiating a basketball game. Ball went out of bounds and I hesitated just a little bit. I couldn't really tell where the ball went out. And I just took a couple seconds and I was looking and I was trying to figure out the direction of the ball and direction of the players. And then the crowd is starting to stare at me. And then people are starting to scream at me like, "Ref, you suck." And I was like, oh my God, I just got to make a decision. I just got to pick one. And I did. I just went with blue ball and went down the other way. And I realized sometimes that, executives have those same type of pressures where people are just kind of staring at them and looking at them and they don't always have the answers. They've got to be able to just start making a decision. And so, you know what? Some of the traits that I've learned officiating basketball at the highest levels are the same thing that leaders have to deal with, and being able to be decisive, make that decision so that everything can move forward. And so that's kind of how I've worked my way into this whole speaking gig thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, talk about high stakes. You got an arena filled with tens of thousands of very passionate fans.
Yeah.
That get very emotionally tied to a game. And when those calls come up, all eyes are on you. Does that ever get to you? Did the calls ever get to you?
It's intimidating. I mean, I've been very blessed in my career. I had actually got to do a game where the front row, I was at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, and the front row was Ice Cube, LL Cool J, Mark Cuban, and T.I., and just kind of like stared at me before the game. And I was like, man, I don't even know if I belong to be here. I would just like kind of run up to these guys and get autographs. And so, but then you make a bad call, and these guys and some of the players I've gotten to officiate in the Big Three, which is Ice Cube's league, Gary Payton, Dwight Howard, and they're yelling at me. And these guys I looked up to. And so here I am thinking I've made the right call. And then I turn to NBA Hall of Famers and All Stars, and I'm like, well, maybe I got this one wrong. When Gary Payton is screaming, you didn't see this defender, you didn't see that, and so yeah, a lot of times the pressure of the game, the score, the time, the pressure of the crowd if it's a home team, really sinks in, and just like, A, do I belong here? But B, should I be able to make this call? And then if I make one call, by the way, every call I make, 50% of the crowd loves me and 50% of the crowd hates me. So I know I'm going to get booed. And then it's being able to have that intestinal fortitude to be like, hey, I'm here for a reason. I'm making this call because this is the information I have, and we're going to move forward. And if you don't like it, boom, I'll give you a technical foul, or I'll throw you out of here if we need to, right? So, but yeah, you have a lot of those same types of pressures to be able to do that. And so just knowing deep down that I deserve to be here. I'm here for a reason, and being able to make that call and move forward.
Great advice. Yeah, I do. You mentioned some about technical. Have you ever had to throw a player or a coach out?
Yeah. So, actually so yes, I've had, few incidences where, coaches just stomp or just refuse to leave the court. I'll give you a quick fun story. I actually have this in my presentation, um, where we give a technical foul on Big Baby Davis, former NBA player. And one of the things we talk about is in my presentation is not letting people get to you too much, right? I think a lot of times, especially if we're a parent, we'll let our kid talk to us, and sometimes they talk to us too much. They say too much, or they say the wrong thing, but we let it go. Or our staff starts to say too much and thinks that they can kind of get over on us and just overrides us. And a lot of times we just take it, we take it, we take it, we take it, and we don't really kind of push back. And so I talk about how it's important to step up and give that technical foul. But the one fun story I'll share with Big Baby Davis is, so we call a foul on him, and he, says the magic words, ref, you suck, or F you, or that's not an effing call, and really just starts to, and he's, I don't know, 6'7", 300 pounds, and he's staring over us. And we give him a technical foul, and he just doesn't leave. And now we're like, uh-oh. like, and we talk about how it's important to be able to make your stance and then walk away. And if they follow you, then you kind of throw them a technical foul, you throw them out, or if, some of your staff members are following you around, that's someone who's just not getting it. And so Big Baby Davis is starting to follow us around the court. Finally, we give him a second technical foul, throw him out of here. And now he's making this big hoopla, and it's the craziest thing. But he's big, he's pounding, he's screaming. And then as he's walking off the court, he runs into the stands and takes off his jersey and throws it into the stands. And you get this picture of like Ice Cube, who's just like super upset that he's kind of making a mockery of the referees and the game and everything else. But the craziest thing happens next is they still follow him on the video. And so I have this video clip, so I can tell you this actually happens, is he then takes down his pants and throws his pants into the crowd. And the fans are fighting over this guy's game shorts. So that was the craziest, technical foul throwing out of a player I've ever had. But yeah, so sometimes you've got to step up. You can't just let people walk all over you. And so but that was definitely the most entertaining. And if I didn't have it on film, nobody would believe me.
That is unreal, to say the least. Yeah, I want to see the video. You'll have to send it to me. Yeah, I mean, it's great perspective, to say the least. You're right. Those are once again, I don't think maybe sometimes it feels like at the level that you're explaining that you have it right there. But, if you just walk by bad behavior and never say anything and know when the right time is, it's just going to keep going on. And I'm sure you've seen that games. I could say you can tell when sometimes I say the refs are just going to kind of let them play unless it's pretty clear we're just going to let them play. And sometimes it goes on long enough, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I get away with this or get away with that. Then it just keeps escalating. And on the flip side, if it gets called consistently right away, it's like, no, I'm not going to get away with anything, so I'm not going to try anything. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, it's we talk we talk in the game in our pregame before the game even starts about what type of game we're going to have. Right? Do we have a team that's going to run and gun? And if a team that runs and guns, they don't want a lot of fouls because a foul means they've got to set up the offense, and the defense has a team to set up the defense around them. Versus a team that has a big time player or a post player, they're going to want more fouls, or great free throw shooters, they're going to want more fouls. And so we talk about that kind of in the pregame and being able to set the tone early. So those first 5 minutes of the game is really important for us as referees and as leaders. Those first, they call it the first 90 days, to really set the tone of what we're going to accept and what we're not going to accept. Right? How much leeway are we going to allow, our staff or the referees or the players to be able to have in that game, in that day, versus, being able to stop short and say, look, this is the level, you can touch, if you're a guard, you can kind of like, what we call hot stove, you can feel him, you can touch him, but you can't keep your hand on him, you can't redirect. And that's the one thing I've really started to pick up is exactly what you mentioned. If you don't call that little tap early, then it starts to get into a little bit of a longer tap, and then a hold, and then a push, and then the guy's like chucking him across. Because the players, like our staff, they're going to figure out what your limit is. And they're going to keep pushing. I mean, our children do this to us, right? They keep pushing and pushing and pushing to figure out what is that limit until you're going to finally blow that whistle. And then they know, boom, that's the limit that we can go to. But you're 100% right. You've got to be able to kind of let them know early on what is that limit that we're going to go to. And that helps everybody, because now everybody knows, that's where we're going with this.
Oh, it's really good advice. A lot of times, there's a survey that said I want to say around 75% of employees don't feel the engagement or understanding from their leader. And what it was diving in is that, they don't get clear expectations necessarily or get talked to, and then they're not maybe doing the job to the level the leader wants. The leader goes straight to like a plan or, we're going to let you go without any of that really crucial conversations that should be happening, especially right up front and in those early days. Do you see that a lot when you're working with, business leaders?
Yeah, it's, we talk about, as far as, I always joke, I'm sorry, let me back up. We talk about like introverts and extroverts, and everyone thinks that the leader has to be this extrovert that talks all of the time and shows up and knows everything. But a lot of times introverts can also be great leaders. And I always think, referees are the introverts of sports, because we're the ones that we don't want to be in the press and we don't want to be recognized and all that stuff. And then, as you're talking, as far as being able to set those clear expectations, a lot of times it's the introvert who is kind of able to kind of have those discussions earlier and recognize patterns and be able to have those communications. But a lot of it also goes back to communication. With refereeing basketball, communication is the most important thing, right? When I call a foul, I can either go, well, I think it's on foul, is on 14, holds 2 shots, or I can be, 14 holds two shots, right? So communication makes a big difference as far as believability and everything else. And so same thing with leaders in your situation, right? If an employee is coming to me and needs help, and I'm like, yeah, I think we should do that. Now, that seems like a good idea. Or, go talk to Martha and, let me know what Martha says and let me know, and then we'll decide. That indecision is still a decision, right? People, if you're not able to give that clear message of saying, I'll take a look at it, I'll have a decision, by Friday, and I'll let you know, right? Having that clear, concise explanation of exactly what's going on, that's so important, because exactly what you mentioned, communication is key. Indecision is still a decision. And the more and the longer people have to wait, the harder it is on them. Think about, I joke a lot of times in football, for those who are sports fans and watch the football, you'll see the whistle is called, and then you'll see the guys get together for like 5 minutes. You don't even know what the call is, right? You're waiting and waiting and waiting. And so nobody likes that, right? Your staff doesn't like that. Families you're working with, and on the basketball court, when you blow that whistle, when you make a decision, everybody can then move forward. Everyone can now understand what is the goal. And the longer they have to wait, the worse it looks on you as a leader.
Yeah, I really love, I think you said twice, indecision is still a decision. That is a powerful line. Okay, I have to ask, you talked about getting into a huddle, waiting 5 minutes, there's still no call. Have you had a game now with today's and the replay and everything else? Have you had a call where you made the decision the moment using the information you had and it wasn't right and you had to backtrack?
Yeah, I mean, so I answer this on two different fronts. So one of the lines I use is a lot of times is there's no replay in real life, right? No executive, no manager, no director, they don't get replay like I do, at the higher levels to be able to, and for me, I never try to use replay as a crutch, right? Let's say end of the game, did he get the ball off in time? Did he shoot the ball off in time? Right? I never say, he got it off. Let's go look at the monitor, right? I've always tried to kind of make that decision in the moment based off of what I feel and what I think the game needs, right? Taking this actually a step further, sometimes we can talk about this is, sometimes you do need to say something or you need to have a foul. Sometimes it's better to let the whole play out. But once you make that decision, I'm always going to go to the table really strong that I am 100% confident in. Now, my crew has come back to me and said, hey, David, and out of bounds, the ball actually went off of Blue's foot at the tail end, where I might not have been able to see that. And so that's when partnership, mentorship really starts to come in, right? Because as referees, there's the reason in basketball that there's 3 of us out there is because we can't see every single angle. And leaders can't see every single angle. That's why they have directors and VPs of different departments of payroll and marketing and whatever it might be. And so you've got to be strong enough to be able to make the decision, but you've also got to be confident enough in yourself that if someone gives you new information, ball went off of Blue's foot, or payroll says, hey, our numbers aren't matching up, there's something wrong here, or marketing says, hey, this isn't working, we need to stop this right away, then you have confidence in your team that you're able to go back and say, you know what, I put you in this situation, I trust you, I'm going to go with that. And so yes, I've made strong decisions. My team has come up to me, Rupe has come up to me, and I've been wrong. And that's okay, because I'm putting my confidence in it and we're making a decision together. As teams, we're making the decision together. So I think that's really important to be able to move forward, that I also trust my team. If I go out there and I blow every single call all over the court, right, then my team is like, why am I here? You think you can do everything. if you're blowing the whistle all over the place, do I really need to be here? And that's why it's so important to be able to say, look, here's my area. I know my area. I'm confident in my area. I'm going to trust my partners. I'm going to trust my team that they can handle that. They can handle that side. If I don't know, I can ask, or if they don't know, they can ask me, right? But I'm going to trust my team to be able to move forward.
That is a really nice correlation. I'd like to dive in a little bit in how important that being able to trust the other leaders and other people on your team. I mean, you've given kind of countless examples throughout this time on how much correlation there is. If I'm not a sports fan at all, how do you feel some of these lessons connect with your audience?
Yeah, it's one of the bigger questions I get asked a lot of times before I actually get booked to speak is like, hey, maybe not everyone likes sports, how's this going to be able to work? And I can't tell you the countless times someone has come up to me after a presentation and said, I hate sports. I might go to my son's, Pee Wee or Little League game, but I don't understand it. I don't like it. But your stuff actually makes sense. And I appreciate it. And I had another person who came up to me. I was in Maine. And she's like, I don't know all this like sports stuff, but I'm a leader. And I appreciate the fact that somebody else is getting yelled at just like I do I get yelled at every single day. So it's, it gives me confidence to know, yes, the sports is a nice analogy for a lot of the concepts that, talk about as far as, leadership and teamwork and split second decision making and conflict management. But in the end, the principles are still the same. And I think overall, as leaders and as people that just trying to learn and grow, and that's why a lot of people come to this podcast is because, they want to learn something new. And I think this is just a different perspective. I think it's a unique perspective on leadership and other things we've talked about. And yes, it's a lot of it is sports, but the true nature of it is, when I'm presenting to my team, I want to be confident. When I am making a decision, I've got to know that the faster I can make a decision, the better it is for my team. Again, the line we mentioned, an indecision is still a decision. So being able to make that decision faster, being able to trust my team, trust my partners, lean into leadership models and mentorship. These are basic practices that, yes, they work for a referee, yes, but they also work in the real world. And I think that's the key takeaway, that those same messages are valuable to anybody. And you don't have to be a sports fan to get it. It's just a little bit more fun.
I agree. Yeah, I love hearing how many people come up afterwards. I feel like even if you don't watch sports, from the time you're little to adulthood, there's going to be situations, whether it's in the PE class at school or somewhere along the line, where you've interacted and can understand the importance of having a referee, no matter what game you're playing. And I think the biggest thing I can just tell from the stories you've shared is it's relatable, but sometimes like teaching a concept, it's one thing to just use words of like, we should be doing this. And sometimes the light bulb goes off better when you hear that analogy of going, well, that in that situation, that makes perfect sense. And that what makes perfect sense also in our business world. The same reason that you would do that, the light bulb kind of goes off and goes, yeah, we should be doing that at work. We should be looking at it from that way.
100%. And, I kind of relate a lot back to social media in a sense of, how do you get someone to stop and listen and watch? And so, on the stage, actually, I open up the referee uniform and everything.
Yes.
to get people to stop and look and listen. So I'll throw the referee uniform on, and stands out a little bit differently, and makes you stop and hopefully listen to the concepts of what we're talking about. But yeah, I love breaking out the referee uniform and getting people, and they're like, oh, give me a technical foul, and blow the whistle, and I'll give out little whistles. So they always appreciate the fun, the character part of it too.
I love that. Now, has anyone jokingly booed when you
Yeah,
showed the referee uniform?
it is. It's. Oh, the funniest part is it happens literally every time, and it's like everyone always hates one of my opening lines is, I know some people hate referees, and like, Bill, or you got I was in Kentucky in November, and Kentucky basketball just lost a game to Louisville, and they're like, "You cost us the game last night." So you get the fun comments, and I take it as a compliment, right? I take it as like, hey, you watch sports, you understand the value of having a referee there, or a referee on stage, because we're seeing things from a non-biased point of view, and we're here to follow the rules and keep everything clean, and so I take it as a compliment that if they're booing, obviously it's in fun and jest and all that stuff, and they're a part of the whole process, and that's the one thing I've really tried to do on stage. So when we talk about like me on stage, is I like to have fun, clearly wearing a referee uniform, but actually bring the audience into it. And so, some of the plays that we've talked about, even on this podcast, I'll throw up there. And I have a whole, if you go onto my YouTube page, I have a whole of "you make the call," because there's no way to practice making a decision, right? I can't go up to you right now and say, all right, I want you to give me five practice. I want you to practice making a decision 5 times today. You have no idea, if you sit and drink your coffee all day, if you're going to even have to make a decision. But in basketball, I have to make almost like 100 decisions a day, in a game. And so I give the audience an opportunity to kind of learn from the lessons that we've been talking about. And so I'll throw a play up there, and I'll say, okay, make a call. Foul on blue, foul on green, or no foul. And of course, every time I do it, and I'm sure I'm going to share this podcast, and the next conference I go to, they're going to still give me the same thing. You'll get 20% to say foul on blue, and 30% say foul on green. And but then there's always going to be people who are like, I'll say, did anyone not make a decision? They're like, yeah. I'm like, the whole purpose of this is to learn to make a decision. And so I have some fun with the audience to be able to say, look, just give this a try. It doesn't matter if you're right, if you think it's on blue, or if it's green, or if you're right or you're wrong. The purpose of these, interactions is to have fun and to practice making those decisions, because I truly believe the more you practice making decisions in your life, the better you're going to be at it. And so if I can give you opportunities to practice making a decision, practice making a decision, then when a real decision comes up, you're going to be much better to be able to, like, hey, I can handle this now. Like, I know how to be able to make decisions quickly. And I think that's a key thing that I try to give back to all the audiences every time I present.
That's great advice. Great advice. I think having that scenario, right? There's a reason people are picking both sides, right? A lot of times decisions are not black and white. This is 100% right. This is 100% wrong. Sometimes they're both a little bit right. And maybe one's a little more right than the other, but not making a decision is worse off than making a confident decision and moving forward, even if it ends up being maybe the 40% right one. It's still, I think, better in most situations to move on and do that and then learn from it than to not make a decision at all.
100%. And even in these plays, I'm showing it to you one time. You're not going to have all of the information. You're going to have maybe 70% of the information. And that's true in your life. You're not always going to have all of the decision to, all of the information to make the decision. But if you have 70% of the information, in my opinion, you're good enough to be able to move forward and make a decision, right or wrong. Just be able to make that decision and kind of stick with it.
Yeah, I love that. One things I got to bring up because hopefully people get a chance to watch this podcast and watch some of the clips. So you got the referee jersey on, but I have to ask because it's here and I have to address it. But you have a really amazing jersey behind you. I just want you to go ahead and tell a little bit of the story, behind that.
Yeah, so I'm obviously a big basketball fan and kid of the 90s and big Michael Jordan fan, but wanted to be a little bit different. And so actually a friend of mine in Chicago uh, uh, got this jersey for me. And she's like, I wanted to be a little bit different, but she's like, these pinstripes kind of look like referee, uniform a little bit. So, when he was playing with the White Sox, this might be good for you. So, she got me the Jordan baseball Barons jersey. Here is my favorite. This is a personalized Michael Jordan photo autograph to me. And this is a game used Michael Jordan wristband. And so each has like a different part of my life, from being a ball boy to the refereeing to everything else. So it's fun. It always sparks good conversation. It's got a little bit of that referee feel in it, and so it's fun to just talk about.
I love it and jealous. What an amazing piece to have. Arguably everyone has their opinion, but one of the best basketball players of all time.
I
Definitely
agree.
one I grew up idolizing. I think it's like so many people have.
Absolutely.
So,
Me too.
I want to kind of hit home with one thing as we try to wrap this up. If somebody, you get booked for a lot of conferences, and a lot of the conferences that, they keep bringing you back for good reasons. Their opening keynote. Why? For anyone that's never seen it and they're trying to make a decision on why you need to make sure they seek you out for either their conference or to go watch you in person, what's maybe some of the best advice that you haven't given already? You've given a lot, or something that you're like, here's a little taste of what you're going to get.
Yeah, it's. I think the biggest thing that I bring to the table is that you're going to get. This isn't not going. This is not going to be some cookie cutter leadership presentation. This is a presentation on leadership, but from a different, fun perspective. It's engaging to the audience, as we talked about. You make the call plays. We're going to be giving examples of how refereeing relates to everyday, not only for the executives and managers and directors, but for people in general, and how it work with it. Constantly, I've gotten people come up to me afterwards and shake my hand and really appreciating how it really stands out. But in the end, it's a couple of the lines that we've talked about already. We're going to talk about how indecision is still a decision. We're going to talk about that there's no replay in life. Truth of the matter is, there are some good things that come out of a referee here and there.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very cool take on leadership lessons. I know I said it kind of the beginning, but once again, you talk about high stakes, the pressure being on, all eyes on you, extremely amplified in that role. And as a leader, it's just as crucial. You may not have all the eyes, but the pressure can be high. People's livelihoods are quite often on their shoulders. So I love how you blended those two together to teach leadership lessons.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me today. This has been great. I've really enjoyed our talk, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to more conversations, and hopefully being able to help some people out with leadership lessons.
Absolutely. Well, I know you will. One of the things for you guys listening, in the description of this podcast, take a look. We're going to have the link to David's website, so you can learn a lot more there, as well as the link to his LinkedIn as well. So be sure to go in there and take a look at his information. All right. Thank you, David, so much for being on the podcast. It's
Thank you,
been wonderful.
Chris. Appreciate it. Had a great time.
You too. Thank you.